continue to explore them in detail in the upcoming workshops. So you can begin to see then that what we are able to get from encountering with the teachings of these masters is dependent in large upon our degree of receptivity. And we talked about those kind of 6 negative states of mind or mental attitudes that reduces our receptivity to the teaching. And one of our tasks is to work on that. I want to now come back to this notion of suffering and again to bring it to your attention that one of the great benefits that we derive from encountering the teachings is that we learn how to bring this suffering to an end. Now that's one of the most amazing things that you will find is the direct benefit of encountering with the teachings. Is that for the first time in our life, we become aware of a science for attaining happiness. The obtaining of happiness is a science. Spirituality is a science. In that sense, it is very different from what is ordinarily called religion. Whereas religion is based almost entirely upon your belief system and etc. Spirituality is based upon a science, based upon principles. And therefore there are certain scientific principles when adhered to results in the experience of happiness. So I thought that I would just start it off just a little bit today, and next time we'll go into it, because it becomes very essential that we begin to understand how to deal with these matters in order to now go to another level of receptivity, right? It's very hard to learn anything in a state of misery. It distracts, don't it, right? So to the extent we can minimize that, to the extent we can better receive insight. Now, in order to understand the teachings as it relates to the ending of suffering, we have to understand the concept of karma. Now, most of you hopefully are familiar with the concept of karma. Anyone that's not familiar with the concept of karma, and that's all right, I'll explain it a little bit. Yes, brother, no problem. Now, the concept of karma is very fundamental, very basic, and you find it expressed in all the various spiritual traditions. The law of karma essentially talks about the law of cause and effect. It really basically says that for every effect, an effect here is used in the largest sense of the word. Effect consists of the totality of phenomena. So when we're talking about effect as it relates to the law of karma, I am talking about effect as it manifests itself in the form of all phenomena. That is everything that you are experiencing, both at the physical plane, at the emotional level, and at the mental level. Okay? So all of the experiences, the phenomena that we encounter is an effect. And it is an effect that has been produced by a set of causes, right? These causes that produce the effect is what we mean by the word karma. Karma really means action. The word literally means action, to act. So, but the law of karma tells us then is that for every action, right, that actions function as a cause that will generate an effect that is consistent with the cause. This is the key thing. All effects are always consistent with the cause of the karma, which means that the karma, the nature of the karma will be reflected in the outcome of the effect. Okay? Now, there's many different categories of karma. Basically, we talk about karmas of this lifetime. That all of the things that you're going to experience in this life, how long you will live, who you will marry, all of your experience has been dictated by a certain set of causes of karma that you brought with you into this birth. There's some karmas that you have created so much of it. Because remember we said we've all had billions of lives, and in each of those lives you committed actions. Actions that produce karma. Now, naturally, within the narrow scope of one lifetime, we cannot undergo the consequences of all of our prior actions. So some actions that are not able to be undergone within the context of our life becomes what we call stored karma, or sentient karma. And you don't have to worry about these terms. I'm just giving you a concept, right? And then, of course, there are karmas that we're constantly creating based on our reactions to the effect. So when there's an effect, that effect was caused by a prior action, and then we react to the effect, right? Which adds another layer of karma, and that is called kriyaman karma, karma that you're creating even as you go through karma. So it gets very tight, and what you have to understand is that the quality and the nature of our experiences are all generated by our own individual karma, okay? With that understood, then, we now can move intelligently into this business about obtaining happiness, peace of mind, enlightenment, and all of the things that we've talked about thus far. Because remember, whatever state you are in, if you're in a state of misery, it is the result of your karma. If you're not experiencing happiness, that is the result of your karma. The money that you don't have, that is the result of your karma. Everything is the result of your karma that you are experiencing physically, emotionally, psychologically, you see, across the whole spectrum of experience. And therefore, the key to obtaining happiness then is knowing what the causes of happiness are. Right? The key to avoiding suffering and misery is to know clearly what the causes of suffering and misery are. And to consciously manipulate the causes. Now, the causes of unhappiness are simple. And the language of the mystics, while it might be a little vague, hopefully we can make it meaningful. The mystics have said the causes of all misery is sin. Fundamental, ignorance. But it is ignorance of the cause of happiness. That's all sin is consists of. And this sin consists of actions that we all are constantly engaging in. Right? And there's a certain specific kind of act that you can engage in at the level of body, speech, and mind that will generate a karma that will reduce and produce the effect called misery and suffering. And there are certain acts that you can engage in at the level of body, mind, speech that will generate the effect called happiness. And the key is to know the difference between the two, and then to begin to bring your life into the life. And so I'm just going to get that up here today, and then we're going to break and answer questions and things of that nature. And then next week we'll pick up from where we left off. Because again, we have to begin to approach this thing like a science. This is the science. You know, the science. So these karmas, these actions can be negative and they can be positive. Positive acts leads to happiness. Negative actions leads to the experience of misery and suffering. That's pretty clear. So now you simply examine yourself and see to what extent you are experiencing misery. And I guess we can pretty much rule out happiness, but we can certainly see that the extent to which we are having the experience of misery is related to the negative quality of our actions, either in the past life or in this life. And what now is the nature of these negative acts that we engage at the level of body, speech, and mind? Let's examine first the level, the action that we engage in at the level of the body. The mystics have said one of the acts that we engage in at the level of the body that will result in the production of negative effects that will be experienced in the form of suffering and misery is killing. Killing. And we use the word killing in the wide sense of the word. Because you can kill in many ways, shape, form, and fashion. By killing, we mean engaging at the level of your body in any activity that results in the diminishing of life force in other beings. And as long as we are engaged in that activity at the level of the body, we will go on producing the negative karma that will produce the experience of misery. You will reap what you sow. In fact, you are, reaping what you sow. This is a law. It is not optional. So it's not like you say, well, okay, Bhagwan, well, maybe karma is true, maybe karma is not true. And no, it has nothing to do with your acceptance or rejection. It is a law. It's like karma. It's like gravity. It's like electricity. Whether you believe in gravity or not, it has no impact on the law of gravity. You see? Such is the law of karma. And to try to understand this is the first step in wisdom as it relates to changing the nature of your experience in this so-called life of ours. So killing then is one of the activities that we engage in at the level of the body that will generate the negative effects that are subjectively experienced in something. Hence, the mystics have said, one of the things you must do, therefore, if you really are truly desirous of obtaining a high-quality life, is that you must cease and desist from engaging in all acts that are involved in the killing or the process of killing. They say at the level of food, for instance. That's why vegetarianism has been recommended by all mystics. It's simply because it reduces the amount of karma that you incur as it relates to your diet. Since we have to eat something to operate, and in this universe, life can only subsist on life. That's how it's set up. But the ideal is to minimize, you see, the killing that you do in such a way that you are mitigating and minimizing the amount of suffering that you will have to undergo as a result of this killing. Is that clear? Even the acts that you do towards yourself that are killing you also creates negative karma. Anything that we are doing, engaging in, that is diminishing our own life force is negative karma. Obviously, we do. So killing then is one of the negative activities that we engage in at the level of the body that we have to restrain ourselves from. And classical yoga, these are called the yamas. For those who have studied classical yoga, these are the yamas. These are the don'ts, the things we must not do in order to escape this experience of misery. The second one is stealing. Now it's interesting because stealing, like killing, covers a wide range of activities, right? We can steal at the physical level where we're stealing money or other objects, but we can steal intellectually, we can steal emotionally, we can steal on many different levels. And the thing you're going to find out is that we all have brought certain tendencies and predispositions with us into this lifetime, from prior lifetimes. They function in the form, it almost functions at a level of an instinct. For instance, you find some children are born just with a kind of tendency to kill. They like killing insects, they like killing, they like just enjoy killing. They kill small animals, kill grasshoppers, they take a great delight in it. That is a tendency, what the mystics have called a samskara, an impression that comes with us into the next birth. And you have to understand, with the law of karma, you have to also understand the concept of transmigration. Because again, since all of the karma that we create in a single lifetime cannot be undergone in that lifetime, it makes another lifetime necessary to exhaust the consequences of those actions. However, in that next lifetime, the thing that comes in is just the mind, not your egos, not your personality. This is a one-shot phenomenon. You see, the mind itself will travel into the next birth. It will have in it, embedded in the mind stream, all of these tendencies. Because you will set up certain habits, right? As you indulge in certain actions repeatedly, those repeated actions get embedded in the mind stream in the form of a tendency. And it is that mind and its tendencies that go into the next birth and then generate a whole new persona, a whole new body, a whole new historical experience. The person that you are now is a one-shot phenomenon. That mind that is underlying your personality now has been around for billions and billions. I can't even say the number of years that it's been around. And it has simply taken on different bodies and different personalities, all expressing the tendencies that mind has picked up in this place. Is that pretty clear? You have to kind of reflect on this a little bit. It takes a little while, but it's critical that you understand the law of karma. Because if you do not understand the law of karma and how the law of karma works, it's going to be very difficult for you to extricate yourself from this continuous experience of misery that you have. Because haven't you ever noticed how you keep going through the same old crap? I mean, do you see it? There's almost a pattern, isn't it? Right? And you keep repeating that pattern. You keep repeating that pattern over and over again. The suffering is the same old kind of suffering, you know? And that is because the patterns in the mind, the tendencies in the mind, the samskaras in the mind have not been changed. And so they naturally keep producing the same effect. And these patterns in the mind are put there as a result of what we do with our body, speech, and mind. And so we look now at the first two types of activities that leave their impressions in the mind stream, that follow us in the form of tendency, killing and stealing. Children are born, and you see, with an automatic tendency to steal. They're just born to it. You see it all the time. They have that strong tendency to steal. It's carried over from a lot. And what happens when you kill? What happens when you steal? Are you going to generate some conflict in this life? Don't you think so? Right? When you have strong tendencies toward hurting the people physically, is that going to create some problems for you in your life? You're bound to have some problems in your life. It's bound to interfere with a harmonious relationship with a set of human beings. Because you're constantly trying to hurt somebody. You're constantly trying to knock somebody out. You're constantly trying to kill somebody. I mean, this is guaranteed to set you up for a miserable life. Stealing, the same thing. The stealing will cause you to set into motion a whole series of activities that is bound to complicate your life and make that life miserable. Now, you understand? Right? And we're going to look next time in great detail at all these, but I want to get them up here and get some food for thought going on over the next ensuing week. The third negative activity that we engage in with our physical bodies is the wrong use of our sex. Wrong use of our sexuality. This wrong use of sexuality causes a lot of misery. Is that right? Huh? Some of you know what I'm talking about, right? It is the wrong use of our sexuality. Now, there's nothing wrong with sex. The masters, mystics, have never condemned sex. Sex is not the problem. It is the mismanagement of your sex. It is to use sex wrong. That wrong use of sex for as a substitute for other person's respect. You see, using sex as a mode of manipulation, as a mode of power, etc. You see, sometimes we substitute our sexuality for character. I ain't got no character, but I'm fine. You understand? Now, this is a very wrong use of sexuality that will always, without exception, create suffering and misery. That wrong use of sexuality might result in you becoming a mother or father way before you qualify and capable of being a mother or father. And now it just sets up a struggle, you see, that will just haunt you all of your life. You see? You may, out of the wrong use of your sexuality, you become pregnant, and then you abort and you kill the child. Now you just killed. Now you done add some more karma, right? Because you're going to have to undergo those consequences as well. So you can begin to see that there are a lot of complications that sets in life that generates the experience of misery as a result of the wrong use of our sexuality. You get that young girl knocked up. Now you never even loved her. You really didn't love her. You're just getting something. You understand? Now the girl, you know, has had a baby, and now you, in the old days, you were made to do the right thing, but some brothers still have enough conscience now, and they do the right thing. But then they're married to this woman, with this woman, they never loved her, and they're just stuck in that relationship for 50 years, It's a miserable concept. You see? It's just a miserable thing. So there's a lot of suffering that is a direct outcome of the wrong use of our sexuality. And we have to begin to see to what extent our sexuality is out of whack. And we have to begin to start restraining ourselves from participating in these negative activities. Is that clear? Because remember, what we're saying is that whatever suffering and unhappiness that we are experiencing is the result of our actions. And if our actions are of the negative quality, the effect of those actions will produce the negative experience of this. So if you are miserable, it is only because you are engaged in and embedded in a pattern of negative behavior. It's very clear. All of the suffering and misery that you're undergoing is happening simply because you are still engaging in some very negative activities at the level of body species. And as long as you are engaged in those negative activities at the level of body, speech, and mind, you will never obtain happiness. Care what you do. Read as many books as you want, go to as many lectures as you want, pray as much as you like, give as much in charity as you like. It's not going to alter your experience. In fact, you won't be able to do any of the higher spiritual practices like meditation. You can't do no meditation. The gravity of the negative activities and such, you can't even sit in no meditation. So it's a very serious thing, and you got to look at it very closely because you are the author of your own experience. This stuff is not just happening haphazardly. You are authoring it moment by moment by moment. And by having knowledge, you can change the nature and quality of your own human experience. That's all in your hands. Stop looking for other people to do it. Now, we all make that mistake, right? We're looking for other people to make us happy, or we think the source of our misery is based on other people. It has nothing to do with us. In fact, you're encountering those other people based on your karma. How do you think you got such a rotten, no good man or rotten, no good woman in the first place? That was your karma to get that kind of individual. That's all it wrote. You have attracted the kind of individual in your life that is commiserate and consistent with your tendency. It is as simple as that. It is as simple as that. And the only way to alter that experience is to alter the actions at the level of body, speech, and mind. Is that clear? Because this is a great tool, a great insight. It can completely change the whole quality of your life if you understand it, this teaching. So wrong use of sexuality. Now there's many others that we engage in at the level of the body. I'm not going to be exhaustive here. Certainly the use of drugs, certainly the use of alcohol, etc. are also wrong uses of the body. Clear, right? Clear. Because of their effect on the body and their effects on the mind. But I want you to begin to see, and as we're talking about this, I want you to kind of, in your own mind, picture of summing up that area in your life that you're having the most suffering. What you're experiencing the most pain. Where is it at? Is it in your relationship with a man? Is it in your relationship with a woman? Is it in your money relationship? Is it in your relationship with your community? I mean, locate it. Find for me. The one that is just giving you the most ill, just seems to be the core of your suffering. The one you've just been telling yourself, if I could just get this right, I'll obtain it. I want you to look at that. And as we travel through this, I want you to begin to see which of these negative actions are fueling and maintaining that state. Because you're going to see exactly what it is. At the level of speech, there are 4 fundamental negative activities that we engage in with speech that will produce effects that will be experienced in the form of misery. Remember, we create karma with our body, with our speech, and with our thinking. The first one is lying. Right? Lying. Dishonest. Lying in large sense. If we have brought into this life strong tendency to lie, we're going to generate a lot of negative experience for ourselves. Do that make make sense? I mean, that's almost straightforward. Can you see how lying is bound to create a lot of suffering? How lying is bound to create distrust in other people. People won't trust you, right? You begin to see that. And we all have brought some of these tendencies with us. Some people are just born lying. They've just been lying from day one. They have that strong tendency, right? And they have never corrected. And it has been allowed to just go on and on and on. And as long as that tendency is alive and kicking, it's going to always generate suffering and losing. Lying destroys relationships. It really does. So this is one of the negative activities that we can be engaged in at the level of speech that is guaranteed to generate some negative effects in our life that will be experienced in the form of suffering. Again, I'm not being exhausted. I want you to meditate on it. I want you to go deep into it. You should be able to find an hour or two over a nice cup of coffee or tea and just reflect, because you need to see this here. You need to see this here. That reflection, that contemplation will function like a mirror. You know, you can see just what you need to do. It gives you precision. You know exactly what you need to go to in your life. There's no more guesswork, right? I'm suffering, I'm miserable, I don't know what to do. I'm telling you, this is what you need to do. This is the way out of suffering. First, you got to get a clear understanding. Because you're right, you are confused. Right, you know you're suffering, but you don't know why. Of course you don't. Because you have not received these kind of instructions. So lying is the first form. The second one is cruel. The use of cruel and harsh language. Cruel and harsh language. Like I used to always say that the greatest sin in the world is to hurt the feelings of another. Tremendous negative comments. And one of the ways that we hurt feelings of other human beings is through the cruel and harsh use of language. And when we use that kind of language with other people, it goes in and cuts them to the bone. This cruel and harsh language, we need not be careful with profanity. So I'm not talking about the use of profanity. But we can use very arrogant and elegant words that have a cruel motive and intent behind it, and produce a very painful effect on the other person. And when we hurt another person at that depth of their being, that person is going to seek revenge. They're going to become your enemy. If you got a lot of enemies, people don't like you, it's probably because you have created a lot of negative karma to create that kind of individual. And they will keep coming into your life, and people will keep reacting until you are able to alter that particular activity. So this cruel and harsh use of language. The speech has to be sweet. In ancient Africa, brother, one of the practices that the mystics talk about is the development of matunasha, divine speech, sweet speech, good speech, because it was critical. Good speech is the key to good relationships. Right? It really is. Where there is not good speech in a relationship, that relationship, even if you stay together, it will not be fulfilling. It'll just be mechanical, you're just going through motions. There can't be no sweetness. Yes, sir?
When you stress about the language with cruel words, not so much you're saying that it's vulgar language, it's language is with the intent to hurt.
Right. Language that has as its intent to hurt another person.
Yes.
That is cruel, harsh use of language that will actually hurt that other person. And when you hurt another human being, it makes them angry, and then they act out their anger back towards you. They seek revenge. And then they start sabotaging your life, start making your life very miserable. And that is experienced in the form of your misery and your suffering. And so the ideal is to achieve matuna touch, to not use language that is intended to hurt the feelings of another. That requires a great mastery. And we're going to get into all of these things. But we need to become clear. What I wanted to set the pace for today was to give us some insight into the nature of our misery, why we are experiencing so much misery and problems in our life. And I want you to see the relationship to your misery to your actions. Because you've been thinking it has nothing to do with your actions. You've been thinking you are a victim. And I'm telling you, you're not a victim. I'm telling you, you are undergoing the natural, inevitable, and invulnerable consequences of your actions, either from this life or a previous life. No exception. Understanding this is prajna. Prajna means wisdom. Understanding this is wisdom. Getting established in this view from the level of understanding the law of karma as being rooted in a state of wisdom. Holding on to this view as you interact with other people is to interact wisely and in your own best interest. Minimal harm done to yourself and to others. This is knowledge. And this is deep knowledge. And when you are able to hold on to it, it changes the whole nature of your experience. Is that clear? So, speech in the form of cruel and harsh language is another great contributor to our experience of misery. The fourth one is the third one is slander. Slander and unnecessary and gossip. Because slandering now is nothing more than your escalation of your intention to hurt someone. You slandering now. Now you're getting as many people as you can to participate with in hurting that person's feelings. Right? You're spreading some horrendous gossip and rumors on that person, hoping that as many people as possible responds to your and hurt that person. You're forming a vigilante like agency. You're hurting even their reputation. You see, you hurt even them at the level of their name. Slander is one of the ways that we generate a lot of negative karma for ourselves. This constant focusing on something that is wrong. You can't find nothing to praise a human being about. Must you share only negative things? Can't you say something good about anybody besides yourself? Most of us spend all of our speech condemning other people. Now this is slander. Slander is one of the ways in which we create a lot of negative karma that produces the negative effects that we undergo in the form of misery and suffering. And therefore, we must consciously practice restraining ourselves. So, again, what we want to do, we want to begin to look at each of these activities and see to what extent I am naturally predisposed in that direction. You have to remember that in this human birth, we have brought both negative and positive karma. In fact, that's how we got the human birth. We had enough positive karma to warrant a human birth. We may not have enough to warrant an average or precious human birth, but at least we had enough to get a human, inferior human birth. So we got that because of an accumulation of positive karma, you see? And so what we want to do is to continually accumulate merit and virtue, because the accumulation of merit and virtue is experienced subjectively in the form of happiness and satisfaction. Is that clear? The accumulation of non-virtue is experienced in the form of misery and suffering. This is the great insight that we gather from the law of karma. Understanding the law of karma, you'll drop all this blame. You'll drop all your victims. All of them. Right? All of them. And your own responsibility. Because the truth of the matter is we are the authors of our own destiny. That is the truth. And we need to understand that and become convicted of it. The other remaining negative activities are the activities we engage in at the level of the mind. And one of the things that we do is that we hold ill thoughts and feeling toward others. There's holding of anger in the mind. Now someone has done something to make you angry. And remember, the least little thing can make you angry. Right? I mean, you're flying off all the time. Because they have no skills at managing around. And fundamentally, most of us get angry when we can't get something our way. Fundamentally. Now we rationalize it and dress it up. But basically, when people don't do what you want, when you want, as you want it, you get angry. And then you hold that anger for it. Right? And so we're angry at other people. Right? We're angry with people who are contemporary in our life, or we're angry with people who are absent from our life, or we're just angry at whole categories of people. I hate all of them. Now, this bound to generate, you're going to have some trouble out here. Because half of the people you meet are going to be men. And you hate them all. And that means out of your hate, you're going to interact with them. And out of that hateful interaction, you're going to generate a lot of negative comments. Because you're coming out of negative. So this holding then of anger and ill thoughts toward other people. Dislike. Now, there's just people you dislike. It's interesting. Most of us like and dislike people based on whether they are helping or not helping. It's really simple. Now, those who are helping us materially or whatever way, we say we like them. Right? They helping me. They're doing something for me. Meaning that they're going along with my program. You know, I'm getting my way with them, and I like them. They help me. And so with them, you know, we are able to display some love, some affection, etc. But only as long as they're helping us and toward the line. And then we divide people into the category of those we don't like. Those are the ones who are injuring us, not helping us. We choose to help. We don't like them. Now we hold ill thoughts about those we just dislike. And then there's a third category, those that neither help nor harm us, neutral people that we don't even consider at all. They don't even interact with us at all. And it is this kind of ignorance that causes us unnecessarily to hold on to a lot of ill thoughts and ill feelings and fundamental dislike. Some people just hate people. They just hate people. Now, think about that. Here's a person that will tell you in a hot second, you know, I don't like people. Now, I can't get along with people. Now, there's no possibility for you to suffer. You're just going to be miserable. Or people are here. They're not going nowhere. Right? I don't like white people. Now you're in trouble. There's white people on the planet. Won't be here. Now you're in trouble. I don't like black people. I don't like black people either. And so forth and so on. So all of this I don't like, these holding up I don't like types of thoughts, are going to generate a lot of misery in this life. Because you're holding the thought in your mind. You can begin to see how all of these other activities, the activities at the level of speech, the activities at the level of the body, all are generated from these kinds of wrong activities done in the mind. So we see then that the ultimate level of management is at the level of our minds. If we don't manage our mind activity, we won't be able to manage the activities at the level of speech, nor will we in turn be able to manage our activities at the level of our body. That's pretty clear. All right? There's a hierarchy. The next thing, that negative activity that we are engaging with the level of the mind is attachments. Attachment. And as we go through the workshop, we're going to come back to a lot of these themes and topics in detail. Again, I'm just going to get them up here. Fundamentally, attachment is a kind of relationship that we develop with phenomena that is based on ignorance, based on the absence of the knowledge that all phenomena is temporary in terms. All phenomena is compounded. It is made of a stuff that has no inherent substantiality. Everything is in flux. Everything is changing. Stuff is coming into being, durating for a moment, and then falling apart. It is a flux. It is not substantial. Not understanding that, we try to cling to things and hold on to them. That's not possible. Now you meet a person right? Just the way you like them. But now in a few days, few months, few years, this person's bound to change. Got to change. And then now you're a Christian. And your whole struggle is to keep the person from changing. Your whole struggle is to keep situations from changing. Situations don't change. Failure to understand the laws of impermanence generates a mindset that tends to become attached, that grasps and now try to cling to situations and circumstances. This grasping that underlies the root of attachment is the attempt at the impossible, the attempt to keep things from changing. And that's not possible. That's not possible. And so, out of this effort to cling to become attached to things, we create a lot of misery in our life. You can begin to see that with just a little reflection. You have to look and see to what extent the misery in your life is the result of your attachment, your failure to understand the nature of reality, that it is impermanent, transient. Anything that is gathered will be dispersed. Money that you amass will be dispersed. That's the nature of things. Some is bound to come along to exhaust the funds. That's how it is. I almost understand. Someone is in love with you, if it's that untrue love, that kind of love that permeates in the world, worldly love is never permanent. Please make a note of that. It is bound to be. Everybody that you are in a relationship with, at some point that relationship is going to end. That's how it is. You see? And you're going to wake up one morning and find out that that man or woman don't love you no more. Get with that. That's reality. That's it. You got to deal with that. But if you can't deal with that, now you're going to go into deep misery. Why don't he love you no more? Why don't she love you no more? How am I going to live? You're not. And if you do, it won't be much of a life. So even this kind of worldly love is transient and impermanent. It will come, it will durate, it will go. Understanding this is prasha. Understanding this is wisdom. Knowing this, you will not cling. Yes, ma'am?
Yes. Bhagwan, having that understanding that we're not victims, even just enough for people who look around the world in which we live, all this suffering, is it really enough just knowing, having that understanding, that wisdom, that when we look at the situation in Africa, all the suffering children, or we look at how we collectively hate groups of people, look at how our government is not doing all that it could, and in fact is constantly trying to co-opt people in their rights. Is this really enough? This understanding, is it enough to keep us solid and understand that there's an order to what's going on in this world, and we're all responsible for what we're doing? You understand what I'm
I
asking?
understand exactly what you said, and the answer, family, that when you are able to fully understand this, it becomes enough. Now, if your understanding is not deep, if it's just at the level, if it's just made based on contemporary observation, then that won't be much of an understanding. You have to understand the black people that you see. So do you understand the kind of horrors that we have committed as black people? Do you understand that? Do you understand what we did? We really don't. Because the kind of African history we read, you know, the Afrocentric literature tends to focus in on our positive. And we had a lot of positive things, but we had a lot of negative things as well that we did as a race. We were the first imperialists. We were the first conquerors. You understand? Of all time. In fact, if one of the great reflections that you need to make is to realize that, man, you have had millions of lives. Just try to imagine how many people you wronged in those lives. In millions of lives you have caused so many people so much pain and misery. In so many lives you have killed people, murdered people, lied to people, stolen from people. You see? Just on a personal level. You see? But when you confine your reflection to just the last 300 years, it's a very distorted view. No scientist would do that. no subject that you approach scientifically, would you make that error. You will always take an adequate sample before you arrive at any conclusion about a thing, right? And so if you look at the almost endless history of mankind, to make an observation based on 300 years in the activities of one little nation and one little group of people, is to remain fundamentally in ignorance. You need to do a deep reflection. Now all mystics, all saints have said that this is the order, this is the way it is, this is the truth. Now the question is, we need to understand what these Buddhas have said. You see, and so that we can really see the same thing. And just a good, thorough study of history, intelligent, unbiased, scientific, I guarantee you're going to find some horrors. Now, what do you think is going to be the consequence of all those black people selling crack to each other? What do you think that consequence is going to look like? Spin it out 1,000 years. You understand? Spin that out. And 1,000 years from now, black people suffering will say, what did we do? We didn't do nothing. And you the sons or daughters of crack dealers. Consequences. Consequences. This law is inviolate. It is true for black people, white people, yellow people, red people. Not only just for people, it's true for animals, insects, birds, hell beings, ghosts, demons, angels. The law of karma is supreme across the board. The African ancestors, if anything, were the first one that gave us this insight. You see, in ancient Africa, one of the things was that you don't have to worry about exacting revenge from somebody that injured you. They said that my art will take care of it. You go on about your business. It was a fundamental teaching, right? Of course, it deteriorated and collapsed, right? All of the horrors that were perpetrated by the priesthood in Africa, you see, makes what the Roman Catholic Church look like nothing. You understand? No, we don't hear about it, nor do we go in searching. Because we're only looking for stuff to fan our legions of victory. I think the vast majority are doing that. We're great denial. But that's all right too. That because it doesn't make any difference. Eventually we all will come out. And we will have to accept this hard truth about reality. We've done some beautiful things and we've done some very bad, horrific. But don't worry about it. These white people that are perpetrating all this mischief, they will have to undergo some stuff too. Don't worry about it. This is a just universe. The most important thing, though, is to see, why were you even born black? To be subjected to this experience. Go into that. Why did you get this black female body this time? You could have had any other form. You could have been white, you could have been rich, you could have been anything, but you got this form, black, right? That is subject to discrimination, victimization, got a female form in a Western culture that is crazy with this patriarchal tendency. Why you got this body? What did you do to deserve this? How did you get this from? You understand? Go deep into it. Go deep into it. You see? That's what I mean when I say we got to go deep. We have to understand this thing deep. You have to understand this thing. You get a body that is commensurate with your karma. Your karma actually forms the body. Because it has to take a body that gives best expression to its tendencies. Now let's say you're one of those persons who got a lot of killing tendencies, right? And no mystic, no saint, no Bible can help you, right? You could never break your tendency to kill and to hurt. Well, then that mind, when it goes out of this incarnation, might form for itself the body of a tiger so that it can have free reign to expressing its tendencies to kill. So it can just kill as much as it wants. You always get the body that best enables those tendencies to incarnate. Right? Now the tendencies are not always, we got negative and positive mixed up in them. Right? And to the degree that you have your positive karma exceeds your negative karma, that determines the hierarchy of form that you will incarnate. More good karma than bad karma, you'll move up the scale. So the fact that you even got this human body is proof that you have a lot of merit that you've accumulated in a prior life. But you also have some negative karma. The art now is to transcend, go higher. But just a little deep reflection. It's a beautiful question, and it's a good question, because you want to make sense of this. That's the whole point. These are the kind of questions we want to know answers to. Why me? Why so much suffering? Why so much suffering in this world? You see, a little baby is born, right? And the little baby at 6 months old get wiped out in a car accident. It doesn't seem to make sense. But you don't know that in a previous birth, you understand, this child, right, might have been a tiller to harm somebody. You understand? We are trying to see with a limited vision. Our data that we're using, sampling from, is too narrow. We need to expand it. And the best form of expansion is the result of spiritual practice, where you can now go into the next level, you see, where the events of history are still accessible, where you can see forward and backward in time, where you can see this person, right? And you can understand exactly why this person is undergoing what they're undergoing. But more about that later. But the point is that all of these things that these great mystics have said, and remember, without any exception, and not by a hair have their commentary written. It's not just something the Christian saints have said, or the Muslim saints, or the Hindu saints, or the Buddhist saints, or the African saints. Everybody that has made those journeys inside the deep recesses of their own consciousness, where they have been able to see from a much higher perspective than them, have, with no exception, made the same comment. You are the author of your destiny. And you've just been grouped with other people that have similar comments. Right? So in any case, then, attachment then is one of the activities that we engage with at the level of the mind that will generate a lot of negative experiences. And therefore, we have to begin to restrain ourselves from making this mistake of trying to make something that is temporary permanent. Nothing is permanent. Nothing lasts forever. Now, it may sound a little depressing on the surface, but that's only on the surface, because understanding the lack of permanency of things, the temporal nature of things, the transient nature of things, it makes us appreciate things. Now, my child, that I know this is only going to be a child for a little while. Now, it tends to not make me not postpone the demonstration of my love. You see, this woman, my wife, my beloved, I will love her more fully, totally, because I'm aware. Now, tomorrow, I might not wake up, she may not wake up, who knows? Now, that means that I won't waste the opportunity, right? I'll pour my whole being into that relationship. So knowing the transient and temporary nature of things causes us to appreciate things. You see the difference? It's the rose is like, now I'm going to smell the rose. I'm going to enjoy it because I know in the morning it may be no more rose here. Right? So it alters your whole way of seeing life. It shifts your gestalt. Let me put it like that. Because by making the assumption based on our attachment is one of the great causes of our procrastination and our reservations in our life. Because you always feel that it's going to be here, it's going to be here. You take everything for granted. You see my point? Just take it for granted. And this gets rid of this taking things for granted. Right? The last, and we'll finish with that, and we'll refine all of these insights next time, is wrong views. The mind holds a whole slew of wrong views. The principal wrong view, first wrong view, is we have very wrong views about death, dying, and the meaning of life. Very wrong views. Here's one of the first set of insights that we have to have. We have to have the right view about death. And we have to understand that this death is not optional. It's not optional. You're definitely going to be dead. That's a fact. Second fact is you don't know when. So there's only two facts of life that is indisputable. One, you will be dead. Two, you don't know when and under what circumstances. That is fact. Knowing that, you see, one should now begin to try to make the very best use of this life. When you have a wrong view about death, your life is in the wrong priorities. Right? Now you're postponing things, thinking that you got more time. In fact, in the tradition, we call this illusion that you got more time, the impact of call. Call needs time. And when the mystics talk about we are all under the control and domination of call, what the mystics are saying that we all are under the illusion that you got more time than you have. You remember yesterday at Satsang we talked about the fact that once the Buddha asked those assembled with them what was the length of the human life. And one person said, Master, the life of a human being is 70, 80 years. Buddha said, sit down, you've not understood my teachings. Someone else stood up and said, well, Master, the length of the human life is no more, it's up to tomorrow, because tomorrow you may be dead. You don't know. So that's really the real outermost limit of human life. Tomorrow. One day at the best. And the Buddha said, well, you've understood a little bit more, but still you have not fully understanding the teaching. And then he asked one of another monk there, he says, what do you say about the subject? And the monk thought deeply, he said, Master, he said, the length of a human life is the time it takes to eat a meal, because at the end of your next meal you can drop. And Buddha said, you come very close, almost you've understood, but not good enough. And then he asked one of the nuns, she said, Sister, what is the meaning of my teaching? And the sister said, Master, she said, the length of a human lifetime is up to the next breath. So you have to understand, the length of your lifetime is the next breath. Because in the very next breath, you can be out of here. And then all of the things you've been planning will remain undone. And when you're going through this painful bargo of dying, because there's suffering involved in dying. It ain't a party at your auntie house. You understand? It is not like just being in some deep, painless sleep. No. It is a very painful transition that you're going to go through. Right? And if you have not prepared yourself in life for dying, then you have wasted your life. Now we go through all this other preparation. You got 401k plans. You're trying to play the stock market. You're trying to get yourself set up for when you retire and all this other stuff. So we understand that we are making preparations for eventualities in this life. But you made no plans for the one eventuality that is indisputable. You're going to die. And how are you going to die? How are you going to handle that? And so this misunderstanding of death and all of these things constitutes one of the wrong views. There are many other ones, and we will go into them. But what I want you to see that there are certain wrong views that we have, that we keep holding on to, that causes us to distort the nature of reality. And whenever we're trying to navigate reality based on these wrong views, we're going to always suffer. For instance, if you have a wrong view on gravity, if you think that you can jump off a building and the law of gravity does not apply, you're in some trouble, aren't you? Right? You're going to be walking through your life thinking you can jump off buildings. Come on. You ain't going to go very long or very far. It's a wrong view. It's not consistent with reality. So we have to examine ourselves, and what you will find, we got a lot of views that we are living by that are totally out of sync with reality. And naturally, following those views have resulted in nothing but the experience of misery. A wrong view is, for instance, somebody else can make me happy. That's a very wrong view. For sure. Right? It's a very wrong view. Clinging to that wrong view, you will go on, enter into relationships and coming out disappointed, failed. A wrong view, someone else can enlighten me. Think wrong view. Subtle, but wrong view. No one can enlighten. That is work you have to do yourself. Yes, the mystic and the saint can help us, no doubt about it. That's why we go to them, to get teaching. But ultimately, you got to do your own meditation. It's the wrong view. Master, I ain't going to do nothing on the path. You're going to have to do everything. No. wrong view. And the net result is that you'll make no progress on it. So there's a lot of wrong views. And in the course of the deep wisdom, what we want to do is to begin to go on a search for the wrong views that we have, right? In a serious way. Because we know that ultimately, that whole scheme of things arises based on the wrong views. So those other 9 negative activities that we see all have their origin out of our wrong views then are the ground out of which all the other negative stuff is. Now we spent a long time today, and I apologize. Next week, hopefully we won't need to spend this much time, but in these initial meetings I try to get the program out and get it set up so that you can see whether it's even worth you coming back here next week and waste time, you know. Remember, don't waste no time. You see my point? Don't waste no time. It is something that is true of what we do here as any place else. So there's no discrimination. If you don't get anything out of this, then don't waste your time here. But do find some place next where you're going to go and get you some insight. That's my point. Doesn't have to be here, but do find some place. All right, if there's any questions, comments, quickly, we'll take them.
I just have,
Yes, Brother James.
could you shine a little light again on, okay, I know that positive leads to happiness, positive thinking and whatever leads to happiness, negative leads to misery. But if you've been born into this world with negativeness, or you accumulate negative, how can you think positive?
That's the problem. See, and you take us into a deeper discussion. May I say just a few things to speak to Brother James, because Brother James I know him personally, and I know this brother is a serious seeker. So I can't play with him, all right? Right? I have to answer him. Not to say that you all are not a serious seeker, but he's a fanatic. Okay? And you know how these fanatics get, man, right? He's a zealot. I don't want him breaking in my house. Now, the thing we have to understand that in addition, Brother James, we have to understand the role that negative karma plays in the generation of the negative effect that produces the experience of suffering. We have to know what the masters call the 4 effects of karma. I wanted to go into this next time because I want to do a good job with it, but just for your benefit, let me just say briefly. There are 4 effects of karma. The first effect is its main effect. That is the effect that it has on this life, right? In terms of the manufacturing of karma, negative experience. For instance, I'm born with the tendency to steal in this life. And then I'm under the sway of that tendency to steal. Now, under that tendency, performing that, I'm just generating a lot of misery, right? And it's a strong tendency, right? Unless acted on from the outside through spiritual practice, I can't break the tendency. That's the point. The only way to break a tendency is the conscious, deliberate engagement in spiritual practice. There is no other way. But this tendency naturally will generate a lot of hell for me in this life. And it will, and the main effect is in the next life. Right? In the next life, it will be the cause for a lower rebirth, with no exception. So you can remember, karma then, this is one of the main effects. That it not only generates suffering in this lifetime, but the negative karma will guarantee a lower quality or level of existence in your rebirth. Real negative karma accumulated in this birth. Not only this is our request, we're going to suffer like hell for this birth. But for its worth, in your next birth, you may not even get a deep life. You will go to a lower realm and have to start that whole cycle, or until you exhaust it. The interesting thing about these tendencies, one tendency, once rooted in the mind, that seed will stay potent for 100 million lifetimes. It will wait on the exact situation for it to come to you. It is a deep thing. The second effect of karma is the way in which it will shape the nature and experience that you will undergo in the next life. For instance, let's take killing as an example. Born with these tendencies to kill. I'm just born. As long as I remember, I love killing cats, killing dogs. A lot of men are born with this tendency and sadism. Ladies, have you noticed? A lot of us come into the world with just this natural predisposition where we enjoy killing, maiming, hurting, tearing up stuff, right? That's that yang in us, right? You see little boys, they just constantly tearing up any damn thing. We get pleasure out of tearing up stuff. You should come as no surprise that we're going to tear your life up. You see us tearing up from day one, right? So you shouldn't be shocked about that, right? We have that tendency. But in any event, let's say that it's one of those exaggerated tendencies that we're unable to be cultured out of, parented out of, raised out of, we will never civilize, and we just continue following that pattern. We dominate. You understand? We just tearing up stuff, killing it, everything we go on. Now, of course, we ain't going to be happy in this life, but it's going to give us a lower quality rebirth. But let's assume that it'll give you a lower quality human, just for sake of example. And now in that next lifetime, as a result of your killing, what is he going to have to experience as a result of the law? Right? He's going to have some suffering as it relates to killing. Now, he will be born in the next life. Maybe one, he'll be murdered in the next life. Somebody murdered, a murderer. Or they may be born and all of their loved ones, people dear to them, will be killed and murdered. They may not even be killed themselves, but in that lifetime, somebody killed his mama, killed his daddy, killed his sister, killed his brother. Everything that he loves seems to die. Right? And that produces the suffering. All right? But you can bet your last bottom dollar that particular mind, soul, will incarnate in a lifetime, or that lifetime will be characterized by a lot of suffering that result from death and dying. So that is the effect that it has on the rebirth, right? The effect that it has on the mind, the mind stream, is that it will further reinforce the tendency to kill, right? Remember, this one act of killing now is going to have these four effects, right? And the third effect, it will be the effect it has on the mind, and then it reinforces the tendency to kill, right? Every time we kill, it reinforces that some scar to kill again. It predisposes us more and more and more, right? And we will bring that some scar tendency into the next birth, right? Which means again that we started off behind the eight ball, right? If it's hard to stop this lifetime, right? We've been trying, you know, some of them criminals be struggling with their killing. Some of them rapists be struggling. They're trying not to rape. They're trying not to kill, but, you know, they couldn't help it. Well, in the next lifetime, they ain't even going to have that much of a chance because the tendency will be even stronger. So in the next lifetime, they may kill more people. Jeffrey Dahmer may kill 200 people next time. You ain't going to tell them because the tendency is strong. And therefore, the suffering and the consequences will go on as well, right? So then we want to see what the effect that the karma will have on the actual reinforcement of those tendencies in their mind. And the fourth effect, Brother James, is the effect in the environment that you're born into, which includes everything, the kind of parents you get and everything, the environment itself. The killer may, for instance, be born over in Africa, right, where they slaughtered, having a war. They may be born in Bosnia or something. You might have been born in Nazi Germany somewhere, where, you know, Hitler just killing up folks. You will be born in an environment that is full of death, dying, suffering, related. So these become the four effects that all of in each common action leads to. And your question was, how do you get out of that? The only way to get out of that is through the what we call neons and meditation. And I'm not going to go into it much here. I promise, however, that I'll go into it next time because your question is the most important one. Once we have understood, okay, Bhagwan, I see I'm full of a whole bunch of negative stuff. This stuff is habituated in me. And I've been trying, but how do I get out of this stuff? Well, the first thing that you got to do, you got to set up opposite tendencies in your mind. So instead of practicing, suppressing this instinct to kill and thinking that's enough, you must actually engage and develop this opposite, right? Which the mystics call ahimsa, harmlessness, right? You must start practicing harmlessness. You must start interacting with people in such a way that you contribute to the enhancement of their life and not to diminish it. We're stealing, you must practice the opposite, right? You must start practicing generosity, right? That practicing of generosity now sets up a higher frequency, vibration in the mind stream, right? And begin to reduce this natural tendency. Well, actually, it's the practice of all the opposites of the non-virtue that constitute the moral foundation, right? Isn't it interesting to note that all spiritual teachers teach first, you must get your moral foundation high. Don't even come here thinking that you're going to make anything called spiritual progress if your moral foundation is not solid. Can't happen, has never happened. The first order of instruction then is on how to scientifically lay down a strong moral base. You got to have it, right? Which really means bringing into alignment all these negative things by practicing their opposite. The wrong use of sexuality gets converted into fidelity, brahmacharyaism, and etc. You all know these things, right? The wrong use of lies gets converted into developing the habit of telling the truth. The wrong use of slander into praise and so forth. Right down that whole schema, right? And we have to now practice that consciously. We have to resist that negative tendency, but at the same time, we have to begin to develop this positive opposite. And in that way now, we're breaking that tendency, right? Once we've broken that tendency to a certain extent, now we can engage in the higher levels of the practice. So the practice goes with first yamas, niyamas, then into asana, postures, body posture. We're going to cover everything before we over with. There's about 8 different stages we're going to go through. But I'm trying to get the bottom one down. Today was to begin to understand the value of this human birth, to get you to understand the causes of your suffering, the way out of this suffering, you see, and to get you looking into that, right? Yes, Sister Johnson?
Yes, I'm wondering if the next 5 courses will involve, will you just lecture, or will you also do some meditation and talk about a song?
Well, I won't, we won't involve so much in meditation. We have a separate meeting for those who are meditating.
I see.
Because that's a whole different thing. This is sort of kind of, this is going,
Lecture.
right. And the thing is that when it comes about meditation, my own views is that I'm always hesitant to suggest people to run out and find some meditation system to start practicing, because I know they don't have the moral foundation, and they're simply going to get frustrated. I try to talk against them. I try to say, look, get your moral foundation in place. You're going to have time to meditate. But what good is your meditation if you got your moral foundation is all messed up? It's like pouring water into a bucket full of holes. It's like, don't make sense. Here you are out of control at the level of your body, your speech, and your mind. In fact, you won't even be able to meditate. Even when you sit, you won't be able to concentrate. And we have to correct the concept of meditation. Most of us have a very naive concept of what meditation is. You see, meditation is actually a very high thing. You see, meditation means moving completely beyond the level of this body into a deeper layer of our identity. So it's a lot of things. Now, we'll talk about all of that in the course so that we get, because we have wrong views even about spiritual practice. And the biggest wrong view we have about spiritual practice is that we can somehow leapfrog over the moral foundation. And you cannot leapfrog over a moral foundation. The work has to be done. And but we will definitely talk about meditation, clear away some wrong views. And then we go from there, Sister Johnson. Would that be clear enough? We'll go from there. All right. Was there anything else? I know that the day is long. There's not anything else, and then it's ended. And I think next week at 1:30, and we'll try to be within our time period.